All right, let me see who else is here. Got Emily and Steve. Hey, Steve. You guys said that have all been in the business for a little
Morning.
bit of time, so I'm sure you'll have things to share. But here's what we're going to go through today. It's basically just talk about business and organization ideas and tips to help you manage like the business component of your career. So it's not about like building leads or getting business. It's more about just tricks for being organized. Like you guys are all independent contractors and basically run a whole business. So we're going to walk through just some ideas, and this will not take an hour. It's usually pretty quick, but we can talk. You can ask as many questions as you want. You can volunteer things that you've learned that are super helpful. Like usually this is a good like sharing class. So caveat for today, because you guys know me, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a financial planner. These are just things that have been suggested to me or that I've learned like over time. And hopefully one of your big takeaways is like find professionals to help you, because even if you're just getting going in the business, which none of you guys really are, you're all pretty much rock and rolling. There are people at every level that want to help you, that will make you be more efficient and save you money and time, which is our most precious commodity. Okay, so what are the various roles as, am I not on video? Not that you guys need to see my video, but okay, can you see me now?
There you are. Yep.
Not that it's very exciting, but so what are the, as a real estate agent, like what are the different roles that you play? Just throw some out there.
Everything.
Yes, you got it. That was the answer. This is the answer, right? You're a marketer, you're a self-promoter, you're a lead generator, you're supposed to be a social media star, you're supposed to be a stager, you have to be a detective and figure things out. Sometimes you're a babysitter and a therapist and like a tour guide and a vendor source and a computation, all of these things, right? Like literally this job is hard because there's so many different components to it, and no one can be good at everything, right? You have to figure out what you're good at, figure out what you're not good at, and then farm out the things that are not your highest and best use. But most importantly, you are the CFO and CEO of your business now, right? Like you're running your own business. Like you're the decider. You're the one that has to keep track of everything. You're not working for someone else that just sends you your little tax documents all neat and squared away. For the most part, you have to like figure these things out for you. So we're going to talk about what you need to do as the CFO of your business and what you need to do as the CEO business. Any questions before we get going? No. Does this sound like it's going to be helpful? Or if I know you guys are going to have as good of tips as I do, so please don't be shy. Hey, Nikki. Hey, Beth. I see you guys just showing up. Okay. So as a CFO of your business, like what do you need to know and what do you need to be doing, right? The first one is, it goes without saying, you kind of need to have a buffer, right? So you need to, these are recommendations that have been made to me. These are not things you have to do, but this is like generally accepted, like basic knowledge. You can take from it what you will and change the numbers for you slightly, but generally speaking, they say you should keep at least 2 months of living expenses in your personal checking account, and then 6 months of living expenses in a separate emergency bucket that like doesn't get touched, right? If you break your femur and can't move for 3 months, like that might be a challenge. Of course, we have like good people here that can help you and help your business continue to go, but nice to have like a good separate bucket of emergency money. Hire a financial planner. They will help you implement your implement systems that can provide you tax savings. And does anyone work with a financial planner right now?
Yes, I do. I started about the beginning of the year, started LLCS Corp.
Is that helpful? Are they giving you good tips?
Yeah. So basically I employ myself. So I pay myself a salary. And then so that the tax implications are, well, we haven't seen the replications of it yet, but they're saying it's going to be much better than what I was doing, just paying tax on all of my earnings, less deductibles.
Yeah. And Steve, how long have you been in the business?
Actually, August 14th is 7 years. So we're almost 10 days shy from 7 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So those of you that are newer, I don't want you to feel like that's a year one thing you need to do. It's really not until you're like really blowing and going, but it's a smart thing to do. And if you hire a financial planner now while you're in the getting started, like they'll know when the timing is right for you to do that, I would say.
It's expensive though. I think if you're starting out, I mean, $500 a month, right? As well, on top of setup fees and stuff. So there is a cost to doing it.
Yeah. And I know there are some people that, and it's probably a different type of financial planner than what you have, Steve, that will do it just because they want to like earn your business and help you make investments and things like that, where they make money, where you don't have like a separate fee. But yes, giving tax advice and then like forming legal documents. And, you know, once you do form an entity, a lot of agents ask me about this, like your entity has to be licensed so that it can be paid by the brokerage, which is a separate thing. And then you have to do a separate tax return, like for the entity in addition to your own. So these are just things you need. Those, it gets a little bit more complicated. So at the beginning, you're probably not there, but as you get busier and busier and have more income, those things make sense. Questions? No? Okay. So you need to understand what can and can't be written off. And we're going to go over that, but your tax professional or your CPA will be able to help you. I have a good list I'm going to show you about that. I'm going the wrong way. Allocate your paychecks to your expenses as they come in before you spend anything. This is basically just a reminder to like be mindful. Like don't go buy the fancy new X, Y, and Z when that paycheck comes in without thinking about what your costs were and what everything else needs to be paid first, right? Like have a plan of how you're going to allocate your paychecks before they come in. Pay your taxes quarterly. This one seems kind of silly because it's something that you guys should know, but it's also for whatever reason hard for people, but it will really bite you if you don't. And then you have to pay them all in one lump plus penalties. So figure out how to do that and make it happen. Put the dates in your calendar and just get her done. Does anyone have a hack for that?
Yeah, I do.
What's your hack?
So every commission check I get, I put 25% of it into a separate account called my tax account.
Love
And
it.
obviously, hopefully never aim to pay 25% tax, but that's just a buffer. And then I put a reminder in my calendar every 3 months just to pay, to go and pay the quarterly fees. And I use QuickBooks. So I use whatever QuickBooks tells me is my taxes owed at that point. I use that number. And obviously,
do you do your own QuickBooks or do you have someone that helps you?
No, I mean the tax advisor I just hired a few months ago. They're doing it for me now, but up until that point, I was doing it all myself.
Yeah.
Up until a few months ago.
Perfect. Okay. Well, and we're going to talk about that, but that's a very simple but very effective way of doing this. Is like create a separate account, put the money there, and then put the reminders in your calendar. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so figure out how you're going to track your expenses and reconcile them at least once a quarter. That's just helping you keep your expenses in line so that it doesn't either in, you know, when you start to do your taxes at the beginning of the next year, you're not like trying to remember things and everything's a disorganized mess. If you check in with yourself at least once a quarter and have a system, I mean, it doesn't have to be a fancy system. Steve is using QuickBooks. You can use Excel. You can use, we're going to talk about, there's a really cool tool for realtors I'm going to mention, but that's figure out what's the right way to track for you. And then use an app to track your mileage. Obviously, you guys are in your cars and driving a lot, and that's a business expense. So I use Mile IQ. It's awesome because it saves specific drives and doesn't ask me after a while. And once a month, I just go through and reconcile, and you swipe right if it's a business expense and left if it wasn't a business drive. And then it kind of gives you like a monthly summary. It'll tell you how many miles you drove at the end of the year. What are you guys using?
I use Everlance and I love it. It does the same thing. It does the Mile IQ, but I can put all of my expenses and all of my revenue, all of my expenses. And then you can even take photos of your expense receipts as well. And it puts it all into a spreadsheet. I love it.
Awesome. Good. Okay.
QuickBooks,
yeah, that's a popular one.
QuickBooks also tracks your mileage too. Same thing.
QuickBooks does it too. I, for whatever reason, have like a mental block against QuickBooks and I get easily overwhelmed by it. But if you can figure it out, it's a very robust tool. And there's like huge companies that run off of QuickBooks. So if you can figure it out, it's a good one. Okay, so this was the best tip that I ever got when I started in real estate, which was to just allocate a credit card or a debit card that's for my real estate expenses and just use that card for everything. So you can pay your Briggs Freeman expenses on there. If you take a client to lunch, if you buy a client gift, to pay your dues, like just putting it all on one credit card helped me decide at the point of sale, like this is a business expense. And then I didn't have to like keep track of receipts or add things up. That to me was like the best tip I ever got when I got into real estate. I don't know how you guys keep track of your expenses, but for me, that helped a lot. Any questions about that? No? Okay. So this one's pretty obvious, but you need to know what the number is that you need to like survive, right? You need to know like, what am I trying to make, but what do I really need to get by? And you just need to be, it's sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's stressful, obviously, but you should know like, what do I need to be making to make this work? To get you going, to cover your costs, to stay in business. You don't have to have a huge marketing budget at first, but as your business grows, eventually you'll want to have a marketing budget. So just know what that number looks like. And then again, reconcile your expenses and income on at least a quarterly basis, but preferably monthly. I think that just helps you stay on track. Any questions about any of those? Again, I'm sorry, none of this is earth shattering, but it's just good to talk through. And I think good for you guys to share tips and like the things that you're working on.
Hey, Serene,
Yeah.
I have a little tip. I mean, most people in this call probably already know this, but as y'all know, the interest rate in bank accounts have gone up for savings. And then I noticed in my bank, like I actually had to move my money to a different account to get those, because if you just leave it where it has been, it doesn't necessarily, those 4%, savings or whatever, doesn't necessarily accumulate in that account. So for example, I'm Capital One and I had to move my money to a Capital One account and am now getting the high interest rates. So I just wanted to offer that up as a tip.
Yes, super smart. I love that. Thank you. Very, very smart. So here is a list that our marketing department helped us create of just what are your startup and investment costs going to be. And again, we built this class for agents that are newer to the business, just to give you an idea of what your costs might look like, right? Like if you have onboarding costs, if you're going to do a postcard campaign, what might you be spending, or what might you look at spending your money on? We have a Ninja installation coming up. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend. And then, Sotheby's events, just your SAE, your different costs. So that's just something, a nice little idea. Okay, so commission checks, like the very exciting day, right? And I'm curious to hear how you guys handle this. One tip is to open like a separate business banking account to deposit checks into and then distribute from there. How do you guys do it? What do you find works for you?
Do that. Everything's completely separate. Personal business, completely separate. Business checking account, business savings account, business credit cards, everything. Yeah.
Again, you're a business now, so it needs to be separate from your personal banking for sure. For sure. And then, as they come in, divide your checks as they come in and distribute where they need to go. You'll have a personal savings account. You'll have your spending account. You'll have your, Steve said he set aside 25% or 20% or whatever for the IRS. And then, any that you're setting aside, just allocate your donations or however you're going to do.
Question.
And then, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. I've always been told to save 30% for taxes. Is 20 to 25 safe? Because I could use that money that's sitting in there.
Well, I mean, that's a question for you when you're writing your tax bills. Do you have a lot of leftover cash? Does that make sense? So I would maybe go back a few years and like look and see like what was your balance and was it more than it needed to be? Because it's really a question of like your tax rate.
Yeah, well,
that's probably not conservative. I should fix that number.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I've only been doing this 1.5 years, so I only have kind of 1 year to go.
Gotcha.
On.
Yeah.
What I did, I was told when I first started, actually, one of the brokers, at least the first week I got my license, a very established broker said, save 25%, forget you've got it, and then use it, but never aim to pay 25% tax, obviously with a clever deductions, etc., which is weird for me coming from Europe where we're used to paying tax, like taxes is the way of life. But here you kind of get used to trying to pay the least taxes as possible. But what I do at the end of the year, I don't think I've ever paid more than 25% tax. And whatever's left in that tax account, I then put it to a business profit account. So then that just built, and I've kind of figured out I have that. I've used it a couple of times, but trying to just pay as much less tax as you can, but then just keep the difference in a buffer account, profit account, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, that's helpful. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. So basically 25% of everything you earn, just forget you got this, not yours.
Right.
Because if you were in
Yeah.
the corporate world, that's how it would be. The corporate world would take 25, 35, 40%, whatever your tax rate is automatically. So just work the same way. You pay yourself
That's
as a
exactly
business.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
your
so if-
employer withholds
Yeah.
for you when you're an employee, but since you guys aren't employees, you need to withhold yourself. And Steve's idea of just creating like a tax account is really smart. I like it. I like it. Okay, and then this one's pay yourself on a schedule. I would say this is goals. If you're just getting started and you don't have a steady paycheck, that might be hard, but I know a couple agents that kind of do this, and like they said, they're running a business and they kind of give themselves like a salary every 2 weeks. They cut themselves a check once they know they have like a consistent amount of business. So questions there? Again, there's nothing magic here. It's just kind of talking through ideas and thinking about it, and like being in a space where you have lots of other people who have been doing this to ask them how they're doing it. Okay, so tracking expenses. You need to figure out how you're going to track your income and expenses so that you can create tax savings for yourselves, and also so that you don't hate yourself when you have to do your taxes, right? You're in charge of all your own finances, so you have to figure out what works for you. Like Steve is using QuickBooks. Some people use Excel. That works too, right? If you have all of your business expenses on one credit card, that makes it pretty easy. So, whatever works. This RealtyZam is a great one. It's an online software like built for realtors. It's pretty cool. You just have to be any of these systems are going to work, but it's going to be like garbage in, garbage out, right? Like unfortunately, we have to like pay attention to this. This kind of stuff is like so painful to me, but you're the CFO now, so you have to do it until you can get to a point where you can kind of farm it out a little bit, like Steve has with his financial planner. So any questions about this?
I have another thing that I did, again, coming from a financial background before I got into this business, I think in numbers. So what I did, I created a spreadsheet, literally the first few weeks of me getting my license, that I track every deal in that spreadsheet. And now it's become huge over the last 7 years of how I elaborated. But initially it was just tracking 123 Main Street sold, MLS number, the client's number, the listing price or the sale price, whatever it was, your gross commission check, your Sotheby's franchise fee, your Briggs deduction fee, your referral fee if there was one, and basically your net net commission. And then I use that to track my production and to track my annual income, gross, GCI, and also net. And it's just a spread. I add it in a line as a spreadsheet. So that's just something I do manually because it's my OCD-ness makes me do that.
No. I love me some Excel.
I just created that spreadsheet, and I can now track back over the last 7 years exactly what I've spent. I also use it for pipeline stuff, so I know what's my pipelines in
I
there.
was
So I
gonna
know
say, like, that's a great business, like, that's not just a great like expenses and financial tip to keep a spreadsheet like that. So you can always go back and look. It's also one of the things we'll talk about at the end of the year when we talk about business planning is like doing a transaction audit and going back and really looking at where did your business come from, and not just saying like so many realtors do, oh, it was a sphere, it was a referral. Like, no, specifically, like this was a referral from someone at my gym, right? And then you're tracking like, where am I really getting my business from? It's not just like, oh, sphere, or like someone referred me. It's like very specifically tracking where that business comes from. I think those should be columns in that spreadsheet as well, because then your work is done for you. Steve may look back and see like, oh man, in the first 2 years of my business, I did a lot of open houses and I closed deals from them, obviously, and I've stopped doing that. And if his business gets a little bit slow, he could say, I'm going to go back to that. Or, you know what, this person used to refer me business all the time and they haven't, like recently, I'm going to call them. So keeping track of all your deals in one spreadsheet, I think is like possibly the best nugget that you'll walk away with
Yeah.
today. It's just a smart thing to do, and it's not hard. It's exciting when you get a paycheck to go and like add it to your spreadsheet, right?
It's exactly what I do, and I'm happy to share that spreadsheet if anyone wants a copy. It's I can give you a blank copy of it. I've already written it, so it's no need to
Yeah,
reinvent
that
the
would be
wheel if you
awesome.
want.
I can send it to everyone on the call. Ninja has a really good one too. I find the Ninja one like a little overwhelming, but you just have to figure out what works for you, right? Okay, so here are potential real estate expenses. This was shared with me by an agent who this is her list from her tax professional. So I'm comfortable sharing it. Again, I'm not a tax professional. The agent that shared it with me is not, but this was the list that came from hers. So I'm happy to share it with you guys. But all of these things can be deductible. Rent, this is of course the portion, this is the portion of your business the portion of your home that you use as your home office. I know that some people say that's a red flag for the IRS, so take with it what you will, but these are just all of the potential ones. And you guys spend a lot of money on this business, so track it and deduct it, right? Give yourself the credit. For your car, your payments, things like that, just figure out what you can really deduct. So questions there? All right, okay, so that's being the CFO of your business. That's all of the, financial pieces. So now we're going to talk about being the CEO, right? Like you're running the business, you're in charge of managing the business and making sure that, the CEO is in charge of making sure that everyone shows up and does their job and knows what their job is, right? But that's you now. So here are some tips. What I did when I first built this class was that we reached out to a bunch of experienced agents and said, like, you were new ones, like, what did you wish that you knew, right? And they said, you need to find a regular schedule to work on. And obviously real estate isn't Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, where you show up and then you leave, right? The schedule is crazy, but you need to figure out like, what is your business? What is your rhythm, right? Ninja says work on your business in the morning and in your business in the afternoon. So that's one like approach to take, but just figure out what a schedule is for you and don't forget to take your personal time for sure. The next one is create a daily routine and then pay attention to how you spend your time, right? So routines are key. And you guys obviously have all heard me talk about the urgent and important matrix, right? Is that, some things are both urgent and important and you have to do them, right? Like writing offers on a multiple offer deadline, like showing houses to a client who's only in town for a few days. That's urgent because it's time sensitive and it's important. A lot of what we do to build our business are things that are very important to our business, but they're not urgent. Like if you stop networking or stop making your forward calls, no one's going to be like, hey, you didn't call me, right? Because those things aren't like time sensitive. No one's waiting for you to do them, but they're very important to your business. And those things need to be scheduled. So create a daily routine where those things that are very important to your business, but not necessarily time sensitive, like actually get done. That's a really hard thing to do because a lot of times the not urgent things get pushed to the side by things that are urgent. You just have to make sure that whatever you're pushing aside is worth it, right? It's not someone else's emergency or something that someone else could handle, but you need to schedule the time for those important things that aren't necessarily urgent. So this one is my most important one. You need to have written goals and a written business and marketing plan. Even if it's your first day in the business, you need to have something to look at and strive towards. So figure out what that looks like. If it's 2 deals, if it's 3 active clients, like whatever it is, like you need to have it written down. You should have yearly goals, but you should also have quarterly goals. And then what you need to be doing is assessing on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and a monthly basis, like what it is that you need to do to get to your goals. This is why we do that guaranteed goals class, is because we take our quarterly goals and we break them up into like weekly steps, and then we check in with each other, because it's like scientifically proven that that's the most effective way to like achieve what you're trying to do, is like having a goal and then checking in and being accountable about accomplishing it. Any questions there? Suggestions, comments? Okay, So have a system and stay proactive. This is tricky, but again, we try to have a lot of support here for you at Briggs. Your managers are awesome. Other agents are awesome. Like, we do guaranteed goals here on a regular basis to like help you stay accountable if that's what you want. You just need to figure out what works for you, and then don't be afraid to ask questions. Obviously you're building a business. There's a lot of resources here to help you, but you have to, don't be shy. Everybody wants to help you. And then this is a good one. Understand what you don't know and surround yourself with the people who do. That's kind of the same comment of we saw that list of all the things you're supposed to be able to do as a realtor. Like, it's huge and you're not going to be able to do all of that. So figure out what you don't know and find the right people to support you there. That's a good general CEO tip, I would say. Okay, so who has heard me talk about Jim Miller before? There's a lot of you on this call, I'm sure you have. But
He's great.
Jim is the chief broker of Jameson Sotheby's International Realty in Chicago, which is actually a fellow peerage company. And he is an awesome sales leader, I would say. He has a weekly podcast that he puts out on Monday mornings. He calls it his Monday morning pep talk. And it's super powerful. We have experienced agents at Briggs Freeman that I mentioned this 2 years ago that like religiously listen to him. He does coaching and training for agents. And honestly, just listening to what he's sharing is like valuable enough. I want to point out this particular class to you. It's a class, it's not 6 months ago. This was a while ago. This is just grabbed from his website, but it's the August 23rd, 2021 episode is really super valuable for newer agents. It's called What They Don't Teach You in Real Estate School. And I think it's just a good summary. I haven't listened to it in a while. I probably should go back, but I highly recommend you listen to this one, and I'll send you guys a link to it. But also, just listen to him in general. He's a good, I follow him, so it gets queued up sometimes and I listen, and there's always a good nugget from Jim. He's very inspirational. He's very intentional. I've learned so much from him. So highly recommend you start listening to him, and definitely listen to this episode. He's a keeper for sure. Does anyone listen to him already?
I do. I saw him talk at the GNE. I was invited to a breakfast where he spoke, and I'd never met him before. And since then I've started listening to him, and he's doing a thing right now. I'm actually backtracking from episode 179. It's called Take Flight, which is basically reinvigorating a business. And he's incredible. Just really, really grounding you back and just getting you basically kicking up the butt to start, almost not start again, but kind of start from the beginning and just take flight in your business. And it's really, really valuable stuff.
It's his program. He wants to work with elite level producers, people that like are serious about the business and are full-time and aren't messing around. And his advice is awesome. I listened to one the other day about like how to nurture your top 100. And I just thought it was really, he always has good nuggets. So if you're on a run or driving in the car, like, it's called Ask Jim Miller. And I listen to it on Apple, but he's everywhere. And his website is askjimmiller.com. So, okay, that's all I have. It's 9:30. I don't want to take up your time. Is there anything specific that we didn't cover that you guys want to talk about, or your most valuable tip that you want to share? Anyone?
I have a question. This is Lisa West.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi. Just a quick question on what your thoughts are as far as write-offs with cars, as far as leasing or owning. Do people have any thoughts on that?
I think that's such a personal approach. I mate for life, and I buy cars and keep them forever. Like literally, my car from high school is like sitting in my driveway right now. I'll drive it around, but that's a personal choice. You guys are driving people around and might want a new car on a regular basis, so may have a different approach. So I'll let you guys share on that one. I think it's really personal.
And I believe in owning, but I just didn't know. I was under the impression that you were able to write more of it off if you were leasing.
I think that's true. That's going to be a question for your tax person. I do not know the answer to exactly how that works. I don't want to mislead anyone.
Okay. Yeah,
But I do
I
know, like,
asked her.
let's see, on this potential real estate expenses, your, I think your lease payment on your, part of your car is deductible either way, so yes. But that's a question for your tax person. I don't want to speak out of turn. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
I
Anyone
don't
else?
know if anyone would be open to sharing the tax person that they love. I have yet to find anyone who just raves about their tax professional. I feel like everyone recommends with these, but these caveats. So if anyone's comfortable sharing someone they love, I would really appreciate that.
I would
I'm
as
using
well.
I'm using Greenlight. They actually came and I think they spoke to us. JB recommended them to me, and I'd already signed up. Then I think they came and spoke to the office a few weeks later. They're very good. Greenlight. Let me find the number. I'll put it in the chat. And they're good. I mean, like I said, it's not cheap. It's $500 a month to look at everything, but I think they have different schemes. But they are experienced in working with realtors. And I think several people in our company use them. So I'll put the website in there.
Steve, they help you with tax planning as well.
Yeah. So they set up my LLC. They set up my tax planning. They set up my as an LLC S corp, which means I now basically employ myself. I'm now an employee of my own company, so I pay myself a salary. So they set up everything on that side of things. They do the deductions from that salary from my personal, in effect, my personal taxes as if I'm an employee. So my taxes, Social Security and whatever else you have to pay.
It's a little bit like farming out your like financial tracking using that, which is nice, right? It's not for everyone because there's a cost to it. So up until you're really like blown and going, it may not be for everyone. But when, again, to my point, like we're not going to be experts in everything. At some point, it does make sense to farm it out. But it's a good question, Madison, of who do people recommend? We've brought Greenlight into the office before because they're like very professional. And that's how a lot of agents have met them. I stumbled upon one when I first got into the business and he did my taxes for a while and then I changed and now I have I use JP Morgan and they manage like all of my financial and they'll give a lot of stuff for free because they're managing like everything. Yeah, that I think Steve for that.
To clarify, the Greenlight don't. Well, for me, maybe they do, but for me, they don't do any financial planning and wealth management stuff. They just do my business taxes and that kind of thing. Now, I use someone else for the other stuff. But so maybe they could do the actual financial planning wealth stuff too if you wanted that. But I'm not sure if they do. For me, I just use them for the S corp business tax issues.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see at the end of the year if they save me money or not. I have no idea. I guess once we get to the end of this year and when we'll figure that out.
Oh, we lost your audio, Zareen.